Welcome to Seasoned Liberally. My name is Cecil. Today we're going to be making some really delicious, very simple frozen desserts for summer. Hope you stick around. So I was going to call this quick summer desserts, but when you're making ice cream and you're making what I'm making today, which is ice cream substitute, it's really not going to be quick at all. Most of the stuff requires it to be cold or to be frozen for quite some time. We're going to get started. We're going to actually do a non-dairy, vegan-friendly, I'll put it in quotes, ice cream. It can be ice cream if you wanted to use cream in it. I don't know that it's technically lower calories, but it certainly has more fiber and less fat than your normal ice cream would. It's made with a base of bananas. So what we want to start with first is a base of bananas that have been frozen. We're going to add to that some flavoring, and we're going to use a food processor today to make sure that these whip up. And when they do, and I put it back into a container, you're going to see that it actually looks like ice cream and has the same familiar mouthfeel. So we're going to get started right now. The first thing we're going to do is talk about the ingredients. So you have to have your bananas. Your bananas need to be more brown than this, right? So you need to get your bananas. Lots of times bananas will languish on your counter for days and days and days, and then you'll finally see them and realize, oh, I either have to use them now or I have to put them away. What you're going to want to do is when they turn a little more brown than this, you're going to take them out of their peel, and then just put them in a plastic baggie and put them in your fridge. Very often people will do this with banana bread if they want to make banana bread in the future. But this is a great way to use bananas that you did not eat while they were ripe on your counter. I'm also going to be using a little bit of cocoa powder today. And to make it vegan friendly, I'm using oat milk. Now you can certainly use heavy cream or regular milk if you want, but I'm trying to make this one specifically vegan friendly, but also lactose friendly too. For people who have lactose intolerance, they could easily eat this dish as well. All right, so I have my bananas here. They've been frozen for a couple of days. I put them in the freezer, peeled them. I'm ready to put them inside this food processor here. And they come right out of the freezer and directly in there. You want to make sure that this process stays as cold as possible. Even if you wanted to, you could even stick this portion of your food processor inside of the freezer for a little bit to make sure it all stays super cold. So we're going to add our cocoa powder here. This is about 3 teaspoons of cocoa powder. And I'm going to add some of this oat milk. It's about maybe 2 tablespoons worth. And a pinch of salt. Now I don't have to add any sugar to this because there's plenty of sugar in these bananas. And we're going to pulse it to start. Now I'm pulsing it to try to make sure I get all the bananas cut out, and then I'm just going to hit start. Now I have to actually push things back down to make sure it is constantly in contact with this blade. We want to make sure that this really whips up fluffy, and it's going to look like soft serve when it's done. It starts to look a little like oatmeal at first, but it'll eventually look like soft serve. And then we're going to put it back in the freezer for just a little bit. You could eat it right out of here once it's finished, but we're going to put it in the freezer for just a bit. You can still see a little banana piece rolling around in there, so I'm giving it a second. So we have our wonderful beautiful soft serve ice cream. This can go right into a bowl and you can eat it, but we're gonna actually take this and we are going to put it into a container and let it sit for about a half an hour. And it's gonna turn into very similarly what you would see when you make regular ice cream. And this is just bananas, a little bit of cocoa powder, and a little bit of oat milk. All right, so we're gonna pop this off into the freezer and we're gonna wait 30 minutes or so and see what it looks like. All right, folks, here is our ice cream. I'll give it a shot, see what it tastes like. As you can see, that very much looks like ice cream. This is vegan ice cream, so no animal products whatsoever in here. Oat milk, bananas, cocoa powder, and salt. So 4 ingredients. And I've seen this made with like a single ingredient. So you could just do bananas if you wanted to. Let's give it a shot. And you could tell, I mean, like we whipped it enough so that there's a little bit of overrun in here. That is, okay, so if you are craving ice cream and you can't have that type of lactose, or if you're vegan, this is a great substitute in my opinion. Now there's plenty of vegan and lactose intolerant substitutes out there right now. You go to the freezer section and they have coconut, almond, all different kinds of milks that they make ice cream out of. So it's not like you're hurting for choice. But if you're at home and you had these bananas, this is a great substitute. It's got a creaminess, so it very much models the way ice cream feels, but it definitely has a banana flavor to it. It's not overly sweet, which is really great because you would expect that the bananas would add a very deep sweetness, but they're not. It's not overly sweet. It has a slight hint of banana, really rich chocolatey flavor. This is a great recipe, very fast as far as ice cream goes. You could even, if you wanted to, cut up your bananas into little pieces, put them on a sheet tray, put them in your freezer for a little while. They don't even have to wait overnight. They just freeze for a couple hours, and then you should be able to make this. And then you could just eat it soft serve, or you could put it back in the fridge, and it very much models exactly how ice cream feels. So we're going to start making the coconut ice cream. In order to make the coconut ice cream, you do need a specialized piece of equipment. This is an ice cream maker. I've had this ice cream maker, I want to say, 20 years. It's just a cylinder that you put in the freezer overnight. It is, the cylinder itself is filled with a coolant that gets colder than ice would. That's what happens when you make ice cream in an old-timey rock salt and ice. Rock salt brings the temperature of the ice down a little bit, and that allows it so that it gets colder than freezing to freeze what you're putting in there. And in this case, it would be milk and sugar and things like that. This recipe here actually only calls for 2 canned goods. Now you can make a wonderful creme anglaise, which would be yolks that are thickened in boiling in simmering cream that has sugar in it and vanilla, and it'll be absolutely marvelous custard that you can put in here. But for this, if you take a can of coconut milk, unsweetened coconut milk, and then you take a can of sweetened condensed milk and you put it into a bowl, whisk it up together, and then put it in the refrigerator overnight so it chills. This will turn into an absolutely marvelous coconut ice cream. All I added to this was a couple of pinches of salt. It does need that salt to sort of balance out the flavors, but it's a really wonderful flavor when it's done. And it's very simple to make. You don't have to bother making a custard. You could just use this. Now, the process of making ice cream we use this little paddle that fits inside. And you'll see when I turn this on, the barrel itself is the thing that spins, and the paddle will stay in place by this cover. And so it will stay in place, and the barrel will move, and it will essentially stir the ice cream. What we're doing is we're doing two things. One, we're making sure ice crystals don't form into long chains. If you were to just take this and pour this into an ice cube tray, you would get little blocks of ice because there'd be big crystals of ice in it. In here, we're trying to break those crystals up. It's going to be ice. There will be ice in it, but they're going to be very, very small and minute. We're also creating what they call overrun. Overrun makes it so ice cream tastes creamy. It's got mouthfeel. The more overrun, the lighter the ice cream. And you can do this experiment, go to your local grocery store and buy a cheap container of ice cream and buy a really expensive container of ice cream. And you will see that the expensive container of ice cream is way denser. They did a little less overrun than the other container where they tried to whip air into it, because we sell ice cream by volume. We don't sell ice cream by weight. So the one that you get that's more expensive is going to necessarily probably have more weight to it. It'll be denser. It'll be more cream, less air. But that air is necessary. If you don't have that air, I mean, you could just, again, if you just took this off very quickly until it was just frozen, you would not have that wonderful creaminess that you get from the overrun. So that's what we're going to do is we're going to put it in here and we're going to get it started. We're going to have it start spinning, and this is going to take a while. Once it's done spinning, it's not technically done yet. You could eat it like soft serve, but we're going to put it away for a little bit and then we're going to scoop it out. And I'm actually going to make a sundae with this today. So we're going to put this in here and we're going to get it started. So I'm actually going to, before I do that, I'm going to shake this just to make sure it's 100%. Because when you mix this up, you will notice that sometimes there may be a little bit of coconut fat on the top. And so you need to make sure that you scrape the can out and you whip it very well, because that coconut fat can solidify and it can stick to the can, or it can be big chunks in here, and we don't want that to happen. So we're just going to pour this directly in. And this actually makes a perfect amount for this particular model of ice cream maker. And like I said, this ice cream maker is 20 years old. It's even cracked on the side. You can see it's cracked over here. I don't know if you can see that. All right, we're gonna turn it on. And we're gonna let it run for a while. Now this has a hole on the top. And the reason why it has a hole on the top is when you're nearing completion with your ice cream, you can add additives to it. So if you wanted to add chocolate chips, you want to add strawberries to this, or whatever you wanted to add, you could drop it directly into the top of this. You never really want to add stuff at the beginning of the churn, though. You want to make sure that your ice cream is essentially, the batter that's the only thing in there. And so that way, when you get to near the end, you won't have a bunch of damaged or broken things, and it also won't change the color of the actual ice cream. And yes, this does require a special piece of machinery. There's a couple of different types of ice cream makers out there. There's very expensive ones that don't require you to do anything overnight. You can just plug it in, let it run for an hour, and it will freeze your ice cream. It runs on its own refrigerant. There's other ones, old-timey ones, that have rock salt, and you use a crank to spin them. There's an attachment for a KitchenAid that has a paddle attachment, and you just use that, and it also has a barrel that freezes. So there's plenty of different types of these machines out there. But yes, it absolutely does require a special piece of machinery. You can't just make this in a bowl. You need to have it be frozen the entire time. All right, so this has been going for about 30 minutes. I'm gonna stop it. Now, there's diminishing returns at a certain point in these particular models, because at a certain point, this is not going to chill this any more than it already has. So it's pretty thick, but it is not what we want yet. We want ice cream. This is more soft serve. What we want is that creamy, delicious ice cream that you can scoop. And so what we're going to do is we're going to put this in the freezer for a little while, just to make sure it gets that really nice finish on it. Now we're going to put this into another container. And you're going to see it's funny because when we put it in here, it was not nearly going to fill this up because this was just a liquid, but now it's got plenty of air in it. I'm going to hold it up to the camera here in a second so you could see how much air is in there. This has a wonderful coconut smell to it. It's a beautiful ice cream, but you can see how much is in here now in comparison to when we started. All right, so now this is going to have to chill too for a couple hours to make sure that it's ready to go for the sundae that we're going to make. So while our ice cream continues to chill, I'm going to make a little chocolate sauce, very simple chocolate sauce that we can make. I'm going to put in 4 ounces by weight, that's also by volume, turns out, of heavy cream. I have 4 ounces by weight of chocolate chips and a tablespoon of butter that's been cut. And I'm going to turn this on. And we're going to get this cooking up here. Really what we want to do is we want to scald the cream. So we want to get it up to a nice temperature, just to when it starts to boil. Then we're going to take it off and pour it directly on top of our chocolate. I am going to add a tiny bit of corn syrup to it. Maybe about a tablespoon. What that's going to do is it's going to add a really nice mouthfeel at the end. I'm also going to add about a teaspoon of vanilla extract. And we are just going to let this come up to temperature. This is exactly where we want to be. We're going to power it off, and then we're going to pour it directly on top of our chocolate and butter. Now, I'm going to give this one quick little shake to make sure everything is submerged. And now I'm just going to let it alone for about 5 minutes. I want this to melt as much as possible. And then we're going to take a whisk and we're going to turn it into a sauce. So we've waited the requisite time here. We have our chocolate sauce ready to go. I'm just going to whisk this, start in the center, get myself a little emulsion going. And the moment I see that emulsion, I'm just going to start whipping the whole thing. And I have a nice, smooth, beautiful chocolate sauce for my coconut ice cream. All right, let's give our ice cream a shot here. This is 3-ingredient ice cream. Can of sweetened condensed milk, a can of coconut milk, and a little bit of salt. All right. And let's do a almond joy. I got some toasted almonds. Put that on top there. And then we're going to put a little bit of chocolate sauce right on top there. Let's give it a shot. Okay. So what's amazing about this is how much it tastes like heavy cream. It's got such a deep, deep creamy flavor. It really fools you because sweetened condensed milk normally is very cloying. But that richness of the coconut milk and all that coconut fat really mellows it out and gives it like a really wonderful, great sweet note, but it's also super rich. And then, of course, a little bit of chocolate sauce and almonds doesn't hurt. But that's an excellent, excellent ice cream. I've served this many different ways, and it's always super fast to make. the batter itself. Now, the ice cream process takes a long time, but if you can at least cut a little bit of your time down by making a fast, quick recipe in the batter form, then you're at least able to cut down some of the time that it takes to make ice cream. Of course, there's plenty of other ice creams out there, and ice cream really genuinely is one of my favorite things, and I like to try to experiment with it. I'm hoping that in the future I'll have an episode where I work on some Ben & Jerry's stuff. I'm really trying to research some of the Ben & Jerry's flavors that I really love and see if I can maybe recreate a couple of those. So be sure to hit like on the video, the thumbs up, give it a subscribe, hit the subscribe button, and also the bell at the top so you get notified. And if you try this recipe, let me know in the comments below. Let me know what you think about either one of these recipes. The New York Times, funny enough, just did the banana recipe, so I know a lot of people know about it. So see what you think of it, and let me know in the comments below. Thanks so much. I'll catch you next time.